MA your channel of choice पर। Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to our show, which is known as Thames Speaks on Sky 711. We always bring those people who are rich in terms of their experience, those who give back to the community, and those who are involved with social services and charities. In this program, I would like to invite our guest, who was heavily involved with royal household and who was also working from in 2009 to 2012 with Queen Elizabeth II. Our guest is Jackie Cooper, and I would like to welcome Jackie.
Thank you. Great to be with you.
It's really great to be with you. There is one reason, Jackie, because nation is just maybe in a mood to see the coronation ceremony on 6th of May, and everyone is getting ready for that. And still, a lot of people, they really want to know the background. They want to know what type of preparations are going on. Even a lot of people, they really want to know what's the role of the monarchy in this modern world. Even after the signatures on Magna Carta like 600-700 years ago, what's the role of monarchy, how it has evolved with time, and still it is binding the British culture, it is binding all these different countries. So I would like to ask first question, what's basically monarchy's international appeal in this modern era?
Well, that's a really interesting question. I mean, the British monarchy is historic, as we know. It's existed for hundreds and hundreds of years. In fact, the first coronation took place in the year 973, which was in Bath in England, and the first one at Westminster Abbey took place in 1066. So the coronation ceremony we're going to have on Saturday with King Charles dates back well over 900 years in terms of kings and queens having been coronated in Westminster Abbey. And as well as having that deep history, there's a lot of international appeal, partly because the monarch of Britain is also the monarch of 15 countries, the realms as they're called, the largest of which are Australia, Canada and New Zealand, but also includes a number of the Caribbean islands and some other countries in the Pacific too. And also remember that the King Charles III, is the head of the Commonwealth, which has 56 countries, obviously the most populous of which is India, with its humongous population, just overtaking China as the world's biggest country. So there's definitely huge international appeal to the monarchy.
I completely agree, because I have seen news. Vice President of India, Mr. Jagdeep Dhankar, he has already landed to London just to attend this coronation ceremony. And definitely, as you mentioned earlier, it's not just about monarchy in UK, it's about a lot of countries. I think 14 or 15 countries, UK monarchs are the head of those countries, and UK monarch is also head of those 54 Commonwealth countries as well.
Yes.
My next question is very simple in terms of King Charles. He basically acceded in September 2022, isn't it? And coronation is taking
Correct.
place now. There are a lot of people, they really want to know why there's a gap. What is the reason why it didn't happen on the very same day?
Yeah, that's a really interesting question. I think the reason is the tradition has been always to allow for a period of mourning.
Yeah.
So that, and also a period of planning. To plan something on this size and scale and complexity takes time. And most royal celebrations have tended to take place in sort of the May, June, July, August time, when the weather is better. I mean, the Queen's Jubilees all took place in June, even though she actually acceded to the throne in February. So you're absolutely right. The king became king immediately on the Queen's death on the 8th of September last year, 2022. But there was always going to be a period of several months before the coronation. And in fact, looking back at the history of 1950s, the Queen became the Queen on her father's death in February 1952, but the coronation didn't take place till about 16 months later, June 1953. So there's a much shorter gap this time around of 8 months rather than around 16 months that was the case in 1953.
I think a lot of people, it will take some time to understand them that there's a mourning period between acceding as a king and then finally the coronation time. I think you were also involved with Diamond Jubilee celebration as an assistant press secretary. How was your experience with the royal household? Did you see a huge difference working in the corporate and working with the royal family and royal household?
Well, there are some differences, absolutely. I mean, the royal family is such a special and unique institution. And as we've said before, there's this enormous history and heritage, but also the worldwide interest. So working at Buckingham Palace, you would just realize the breadth of interest that there was all over the world in the royal family. We've talked about the 56 Commonwealth countries, including obviously India, but also in the likes of America and Germany. There's huge interest in the British monarchy. So it really is a sort of worldwide monarchy. So absolutely, I mean, one of the strange things about working, or unusual things I should say about working at Buckingham Palace, is that in a lot of other environments, you have to work very hard to generate coverage. You have almost the opposite problem in the royal household, where you don't have to work that hard to generate interest in coverage, but you have to work hard to sort of manage it and steer it in the right direction. So it's a unique and very special institution, and I was absolutely privileged to work there.
Excellent. King Charles III, I think he is one of the longest serving Prince of Wales, and he also started a charity which is known as the Prince's Trust, and maybe around 80 to 90,000 young people, they got benefited from that charity. Can you please tell me about all those charitable activities which King Charles has done as a prince?
Well, the King Charles as Prince of Wales had huge and extensive charitable interests. I mean, probably his sort of biggest one and best known one is the Prince's Trust, which you mentioned, which he set up back in 1976 with his severance pay from the Royal Navy when he left the Royal Navy, because he wanted to do something to help young people from underprivileged backgrounds get into education, employment, or some kind of training. So he set that up, and he had a vision in 1976. And all these years later, 47, I think, years later, it's become an incredible success. And it's helped actually over 1 million young people find work or get into education in some way. And in fact, it's gone international. So as of 2015, a sister charity was set up called Prince's Trust International, which is now in 22 countries, including India, helping young people in this way. But obviously his charity interests go way beyond the Prince's Trust. He's got extensive interests on things like climate change, architecture. He's actually been patron or president of over 800 charities, so enormous breadth of different interests. But he's also what his team have called a charitable entrepreneur. So he hasn't just become sort of patron, name on a letterhead of a charity. I mean, he's partly done that, but he's also liked to set up new initiatives or charitable foundations to address a particular cause or problem. And he's done that absolutely brilliantly. He has seen a sort of gap where something needs to be done and really used his convening power to set something up and get something going. So he's also been a tremendous charitable entrepreneur.
I think I heard in 1970s, when people were not worried about environmental issues, pollution, plastic and other things. In 1970s, he also mentioned about, he gave a lecture, a speech about the plastic and the environmental pollution. And since 1970s, then he every year he is basically more focusing on environmental issues. I also heard wherever he goes, he always prefer to plant trees, and finally then he will shake hand with the branch of the tree and wish them best of luck. Do you think that he was visionary in 1970s and he started talking about environment, which we started talking in last 10-15 years now? Yeah,
I think that's another really perceptive point, that the King's passion for environmental responsibility started really early. He had tremendous vision and foresight and saw it before actually it was a mainstream issue. I mean, he partly inherited the interest through his father, the Duke of Edinburgh, who was a great conservationist, but has pursued it in his own way and shown incredible leadership, I think, on the global stage in trying to convene different governments around the world and different actors, including the business community, to address this environmental responsibility. He attended the COP26 summit in Glasgow in 2021, which the UK hosted. And again, he's been a prime actor in trying to encourage this responsibility. And now, obviously, it's hit the mainstream, and I think his role has really been properly appreciated.
I think everyone agree about, especially COP26. It has basically opened millions of questions, and everyone was aware that environmental issues will cause more and more problems in future if we will not take strict action. A lot of countries, they pledge that we will cut our carbon emissions, we will not use coal, we will not use diesel or petrol, and we will focus more on renewable sources of energy. And that was a great outcome from COP26. My next question is, sometimes people, those who are having a different type of democracy where they do not have monarchs, they really want to know what's the role of constitutional monarchy, what exactly they do, how exactly they bind the whole society and community together, how do they host events and functions and diplomatic events and functions for international dignitaries, what's exactly their role?
Yeah. Again, that's a really important point. I mean, Britain has both a head of state who's the monarch and a head of government who's the prime minister, and the roles are distinct. Obviously, other countries put those two roles into one, but in the UK, they're absolutely separate. And the monarchy, the British monarchy, as I said, is hundreds and hundreds of years old, and it's evolved. At one point, it was a military monarchy where the king or queen would lead their troops into battle, and then it became an executive monarchy where the king or queen held power. But now, actually, it's a non-executive monarchy. The king or queen does not hold political power, but has become what one commentator called the welfare monarchy. So really, the bread and butter of the British monarchy is around supporting good causes, charitable causes, promoting public service. And in a way, the theme of this coronation weekend will all be all about service. In fact, the Westminster Abbey coronation service itself, the whole theme of it is called to serve. So service is playing a big role in the story the palace are trying to put out over the weekend. So absolutely, there are lots of monarchies around the world, but the British monarchy, I think, is absolutely a constitutional monarchy. It does not hold political power, but it holds huge influence and sway. And the monarch is a figurehead for stability, continuity, and plays a really important function in the UK as well as on the global stage too.
Even when UK is leading in many ways in terms of technology, in terms of maybe I can say the global issues, maybe it may be environmental issues, but if I see as a British society, I can see diversity is an excellent word, which maybe UK is leading in the world. It has basically absorbed all those different cultures. It has added all those flavors from the different parts of the world. Being an Indian, I can say maybe 100 years ago, no one knew about curries, but today I think everyone knows what is curry in UK. So there's one more thing which I have seen King Charles, he has done. He has approached various faith groups. He visits regularly to all those places. That is also a part of, I can say, diversity in unity, I can say. So what do you think about King Charles' effort to bring diversity on the main platform?
Well, I think the King has played a really important role as a facilitator of diversity in terms of really connecting with minority groups in the UK. He's done an outstanding job since he became Prince of Wales back in 1969, and has formed very close connections, as you say, with different faith communities. He has particular interest in Islam and has close connections within the British Muslim communities, but has also developed really close kinships and connections with other faith communities such as the Hindu and Sikh community. Obviously, he set up something called the British Asian Trust, which as a vehicle partly for his relationship with those communities. And indeed, the first official reception he held as king was in Edinburgh for the British Asian Trust. He's also visited a Gurdwara in Luton in his short time, in only his 8 months as king. And I'm part of the Jewish community. He's also developed a strong relationship with the Jewish community. And it's interesting, whenever you ask leaders and representatives of the different communities about the king, they will say, well, we feel we have a particularly special relationship with him. And he's doing that very well, because there's not just one community he has that with, but really all the major faith communities in the UK. So I think he's done a brilliant job at that. And I think the monarchy in general has played a really important role in facilitating integration and diversity in a very multinational, multi-faith and multicultural society.
I absolutely feel, because the monarchy is acting like a gel between all these different tiles and binds them together as a nation. And my next question is, when King Charles, as a Prince of Wales, when he visited Tanzania, he was given a title, Keeper of the Cows. To be surprised, in India also, when kings, when they will when they will go for coronation or any other place, sometimes they are also titled as a Gaurakshak or something to do with the cow. So when I was reading about this, when the Maasai community gave this title, Keeper of the Cows, I was thinking about the civilization connection between Asia, Africa and United Kingdom. So I thought this is also a new connection. My next question will be, you are also associated with all these preparations and a few other things. I think for audience, I would like to tell them that you're also co-chair of British Indian Jewish Association, and you're also co-founder of Integra. A lot of people are probably, if they don't know, probably they can Google you and they can find about you and your work. But Jackie, can you tell me what type of preparations are going on at the moment, and what do you think, how people will see or how people will celebrate this coronation ceremony?
Yeah, well, I think there's going to be enormous interest. I mean, we know that the Queen's funeral back in September was watched by 4 billion people, pretty much half the world's population. So I don't know exactly what the numbers will be with the coronation, but they'll be huge and global. There's no doubt about that. I mean, we're in the heart of London now, and there's definitely a buzz around the city as they realise that we're preparing for this once-in-a-generation event. Obviously, we've not had a coronation for 70 years. So I think there's absolutely enormous excitement. And I think another important point is the coronation is a 3-day event in the UK. So we have the main ceremony at Westminster Abbey itself on Saturday, but on Sunday we have the big coronation lunch, which is all about street parties, gatherings, festivals, carnivals, people getting together with their neighbours and getting to know each other in their local communities, building what the sociologists called social capital. And then on Monday, we have what's called the Big Help Out, which is a festival of volunteering. It's really trying to get people in the UK to do something good, an act of service or kindness to friends, neighbours, whoever it may be. And there are a whole range of projects being planned. And we at Integra have been involved in that. Although actually it's different to our main function. We're a communications firm that work for a number of sort of high net worth entrepreneurs and philanthropists. So this is a slightly unusual project for us, but we've relished the opportunity to be involved in this once-in-a-generation event. So
I know you are part of Big Help, and you will also involve in those Monday activities. What type of activities do you think you will create, and how you will link with the people?
Yeah, so there are a huge range of activities being planned. Lots of the big UK charities, for example, the Scouts and the Girl Guides are involved and on board. And our particular role has been in really galvanising Britain's faith communities into activities. And in some ways it's been preaching to the converted, if you pardon the pun, in the sense that faith communities already do so much volunteering, and we've been trying to sort of get them to continue to do that on the Monday for the Big Help Out. And there are a whole range of things planned, things like food banks. People are gathering baby clothes to try and sort of recycle them to those in need. There are things like litter picks. There's tree planting. There's a beach cleanup taking place in Wales. So there's some really fantastic projects being planned by Britain's faith community, but actually not just the faith communities, all communities for Monday for the Big Help Out.
Perfect. I think everyone, those who are planning for these next 3 days events, definitely they will watch on TV, watch on YouTube, and even a lot of people, they will enjoy the street parties. But the biggest thing is, unfortunately, in this modern world, we are connected with millions of people, but we are not connected with our neighbors. We are not connected with the people, those who are on our street. We are not connected with our local vendors, local shopkeepers. I think this is an opportunity when people can connect with the local people. Maybe they can meet each other and they can enjoy. And I think that's a real happiness when you're meeting real people rather than the digital people. In the end, I will just ask one more question. How was your experience when you were part of the Diamond Jubilee celebration, and do you think that similar experience will again recreated in the ceremony?
Well, the Diamond Jubilee was a fantastic celebration. I mean, in Britain, we've actually had 4 Jubilees within about 35 and 40 years, going back to the Queen's Silver Jubilee in 1977, then her Golden Jubilee, her Diamond Jubilee, and then last year her Platinum Jubilee. So she managed to get 4 different Jubilees, and it was a privilege to work on one of them, the Diamond Jubilee in 2012, which marked 60 years of her reign. And in fact, you know, there have been some big royal events over the last year, happy and sad. As I say, we've had the Queen's Platinum Jubilee, and then obviously we had her funeral in September. But I think for this coronation, there will be a huge amount of interest. I think there'll be a lot of celebration. But the idea behind it is not that it's just a one-off party, that it leaves an enduring legacy, which is why we're really so excited to be involved in the Big Help Out to promote volunteering all over the UK.
I think people will witness the history. People will witness something. I was just thinking when you mentioned that the last coronation happened 70 years ago. So anyone who is 69 year or younger than 69 year, they have not seen any, or they have not watched any coronation ceremony in UK. So it's like a lifetime chance for many people, or for many generations, to watch this and cherish those memories forever. So I think everyone will enjoy this coronation ceremony. Zaki, thanks a lot for this joining today, and I'm sure your insightful conversation will enlighten a lot of people. They will try to understand the link between the monarchy, the modern democracy, and the British system, British values, and other things. Thanks a lot for joining us tonight. Thank you.
Well, thank you for having me, and sending greetings from the heart of London to all your viewers in India.
Thank you. So this was our program about coronation ceremony, which is happening on 6th of May, and this program will be for next 3 days. I just want to say a few more things about King Charles, coronation and monarchy. कई बार ऐसा लगता है कि मोनार्की अलग अलग देशों में अलग अलग नज़रिए से और अलग अलग अंदाज से लोगों ने इसे महसूस किया है, पर ब्रिटिश कल्चर में यदि देखा जाए तो मोनार्की इन सारे अलग अलग समूहों को, अलग अलग कंट्रीज़ को, अलग अलग हिस्सों को, अलग अलग कल्चर्स को बांध के रखने वाली या एक सूत्र में पिरो कर रखने वाली वो ताकत है जो इस नेशन का निर्माण करती है, इस राष्ट्र का निर्माण करती है। यदि हम इन सारी स्थितियों में जाएं तो ऐसा भी देखा जाता है कि मोनार्क या किंग जो है, उन्हें सिर्फ ऐसा नहीं कि सिर्फ राज्य सत्ता तक ही वो सीमित है। यहाँ की जनता या वो स्वयं अपने उन सारे व्यक्तिगत गुणों को दुनिया के सामने रखना चाहते हैं या फिर चैंपियन बनना चाहते हैं, जैसे चाहे वो एनवायरनमेंट के इश्यूज हों, चाहे वो यूथ तो सही डायरेक्शन देने के इश्यूज हों, जॉब्स के इश्यूज हों, या फिर दुनिया भर के जो ग्लोबल इम्पैक्ट्स वाले इश्यूज हैं, इन सब पर मोनार्की चाहती हैं कि या तो उनकी कोई राय हो, या फिर उन्होंने कुछ काम किया हो, या फिर वो अलग अलग तरह की 800 या 1000 चैरिटी से जुड़े रहते हैं जो लोगों में लोक कल्याण का काम करती है। ये इस तरह का एक ऐसा ताना बाना है जो लोगों से जुड़ी है। साथ ही साथ जितनी भी इंटरनेशनल डिग्निटरीज यूके में जब आती हैं, जब वो स्टेट डिनर या स्टेट का जब फंक्शन होता है, तो मोनार्क्स उसमें हमेशा रहते हैं या फिर मोनार्क्स के रिप्रेजेंट वहां रहते हैं। उनका एक ही कारण है क्योंकि मोनार्की लोगों की जन भावनाओं का भी ख्याल रखती है। एक और चीज जो हमेशा देखी गई है, जो अलग अलग सभ्यताओं में मोनार्की या राजाओं के बारे में जो कहा गया, उसमें ऐसा है कि इस मोनार्की का जो एब्सोल्यूट मोनार्की का जो फॉर्म था, वो मैग्ना कार्टा की संधि ने उसे कुंद कर दिया। मैग्ना कार्टा 700-800 साल पहले थेम्स के एक छोटे से टापू रनीवीड के पास में सिग्नेचर्स हुए थे उस पर, और उसके बाद धीरे धीरे पार्लियामेंट अस्तित्व में आई, अलग अलग तरह के प्राइम मिनिस्टर बने, और एक तरह से ये ऐसा कहा जा सकता है कि लोक भावना के साथ राज भावना दोनों साथ साथ पुष्पित और पल्लवित होती गई। सो ये जो कोरोनेशन सेरेमनी है, इसमें भी अलग अलग तरह के हिस्से हैं। जैसे वेस्टमिंस्टर एबे में जहां कोरोनेशन सेरेमनी होगी, 900 सालों से वहां पर कोरोनेशन सेरेमनी होती आ रही है। उनसे पहले बाथ और अलग अलग जगहों पे कोरोनेशन सेरेमनीज हुई हैं। एक हिस्सा वो है, और दूसरा हिस्सा है वो है लोगों का स्ट्रीट पार्टीज का। ये शायद ब्रिटिश कल्चर है, जहां पर बाकी अलग अलग देशों में ऐसी पार्टीज कम है, लेकिन यहाँ की हर गली और नुक्कड़ और स्ट्रीट पे लोग अपने घरों के सामने रहेंगे, अपने पड़ोसियों के साथ हंस खेल कर उस अच्छे समय का, अच्छे खुशनुमा दिन का कह सकते हैं कि सबके सामने ये जाहिर करेंगे कि ये एक राष्ट्र की भावना है। नेक्स्ट चीज़ जो बहुत ज़बरदस्त है, यदि आप ईस्टर्न कंट्रीज़ में जाएंगे तो आप पाएंगे कि राज्याभिषेक राजा के मरने के तुरंत पश्चात हो जाता है। इवन राजा के दाह संस्कार से पहले ही नए राज्य का राज्याभिषेक हो जाता है, और नया राजा कभी भी अपने मृत पिता या जो मृत राजा हैं उनके दाह संस्कार में ज़्यादातर जाते नहीं थे। ये एक ऐसा सिस्टम था। पर यहाँ पर ऐसा पाया गया कि राज्याभिषेक के पुराने जो मोनार्क हैं उनकी मृत्यु के पश्चात एक लंबा पीरियड रखा जाता है जिसे कह सकते हैं शोक का समय। उस शोक के समय मतलब सितंबर 2022 से अब तक शोक का समय था। अब शोक के समय के बाद वापस नए राज्य का राज्याभिषेक हो रहा है। अब इस 6 तारीख को जो प्रोग्राम हो रहा है, मुझे आशा है सारे दर्शक उस कार्यक्रम को एंजॉय करेंगे और जो हिस्ट्री बन रही है, जो इतिहास बन रहा है, उसे अपने आंखों से देखने की कोशिश करेंगे। इसी शुभेच्छाओं के साथ आप सभी को थैंक यू।